like our fans, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. The support's been amazing. But, you know, the thing is that it's very exciting, but it's what we've been working towards for the last couple of years. And, you know, we've got a really good team and terrific coaching staff, and I think we're ready.
All of that is part of what has happened, and you can't really discuss where you are without going back to what you did. So let me take you back.
Okay.
Previous regime is let go. You are there with Rod Wood, Mike Disner, ultimately Chris Spielman. And you're not just hiring people, you're deciding what you want to be as an organization and what your guiding principles will be. What was that process like, and where did you land?
When I first got this position, I called a very good friend of mine that I respect a lot, that I went to college with. He ran a multinational company. And, you know, I just said to him, and I always loved his leadership style and kind of how he went about things. And I said, you know, if you were me, how would you think about this job? And he said, well, the first thing you need to do is define your noble cause. And once you've done that and you get a few people to buy in with you, everything will fall into place. So I thought, okay. So my noble cause, after a lot of thought, was the city of Detroit, the fans, you know, the state, everybody who's supported the Lions for so many years, and how can we bring a winner? And so then my first call, was to Chris Spielman, and asked him if he would be interested in coming and helping this thought, and also digging into the organization a bit, realized we needed a culture shift, and Chris was intrigued by that thought. And so when Chris came on board, and he and Rod and Mike Disner and I got together for hours before we even began interviewing, we started to talk. We talked about what are we looking for in our new leadership. And the first thing was leadership. The second thing was culture. And I think, you know, when we hired Brad and Dan, we got the people we were looking for.
You know, one of my favorite moments with you was when I heard you say, we can't hide from our past. And I think what you're saying there is you had to have an understanding of what had happened before you could move forward. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And you know, I had the privilege and honor of working with my mother for 6 years. Well, she was the principal owner, and I learned a lot with her. You know, she was sort of had to pioneer her way through a lot of things, and I saw many, many wonderful things she did, and many, many things that, you know, maybe she and I would have thought about differently, you know, had I had this perspective I have now. So yes, I look back to look forward.
Your head coach has already told us what a competitor you are. When you have heard criticism for years of the ownership of this team, and then you get your chance to do it your way, is there a part of you that says, I'm going to show people? And that it becomes a personal challenge?
A little bit, but you know, I have to say my dad was a competitor too, for sure. He was a fabulous athlete, and he wanted nothing more than a winner. But you know, the game changed, the whole landscape of the NFL changed dramatically from the time he bought the team till now. And so, yes, I am a competitive person. I really hate to lose. I think I said that a million times in my first interview, and it's true. But yes, I'm, you know, very excited and thrilled to be able to do things my way. But it's been a building block really from the past.
So the plan was to tear it down completely. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder for you, was that daunting, thinking about how long that might take? And are you surprised at how quickly you've been able to get back? You look at this roster now, it is well respected, and people have expectations for you now.
Absolutely. Well, when I think all the way back, when we didn't have a general manager, we didn't have a coach, and then our quarterback decides he wants to be traded, it was, you know, okay, I guess we can do this.
Welcome to the job.
This is really ground zero. But in a way, it was a great opportunity to really start over. And you know, and as I say, we worked very hard. As you know, we interviewed 12 candidates for general manager, 8 for head coach. And when we found Brad and Dan, you know, and all 4 of us agreed these were our guys, that was something. And we were hoping that they would work well together, which of course has worked out beautifully. I mean, a bit of an arranged marriage for sure, but so you never really know, but we were pretty sure this was gonna work, and they work so well together. It's just actually a joy to watch them. And you know, we've had our ups and downs, obviously, and we did start from ground zero. And, you know, building a team is not linear. It's, you know, going to have ups and downs. And as you know, last year I came out after we were 1-5, but I could see what was going on, and I really believed in the leadership and the coaches we had, and, you know, Brad's process and all the scouts and everybody that was working so hard on this, that it was going to be fine.
That was my next question.
Okay.
There are pivotal moments for owners. That was one of them. Mm-hmm. They're 1-5. And you chose that time to double down on Brad and Dan and say, this is a vote of confidence. They're my guys. I have no doubts. Was there any moment after that where you said, man, I hope I'm right? Because you put a lot on the line there.
Well, no, I really could see what was going on. I really believed that. And, you know, I think there were a couple games we lost by 3 points or something. We were very close. And, you know, I mean, we went and lost the next game, and maybe thought, whoops, but no, not really. I could see what was going on, and I felt great about our leadership, and I obviously still do.
You see them every day. Mm-hmm. People in Detroit believe that they are the right ones, but you are up close, you watch them work. What is it that stands out to you?
Well, just their collaboration, which was part of the culture change I wanted to have happen here. That, you know, I realized that there wasn't a lot of communication going on between different groups of people, and, you know, between the people in Allen Park and Ford Field. It seemed to me that the whole organization needed to somehow be on the same page for this to work. And Brad and Dan are perfect examples of that. To watch them together, you know, not that they always agree on everything, of course not, but they listen to each other, they talk to each other, and I think the combination together is really spectacular.
The thing that I see now, having watched this organization for 27 years, that is better than it ever has been, just from my point of view, and that starts with you and your vision, is everybody in this organization now feels valued. Everybody feels when they come to work that they're a part of what's happening here. Is that ultimately what you think drives this?
That's ultimately what we've been working for, exactly, because it does take all of us. You know, it's not just, you know, what's happening on the football field. It's what's happening in the ticket office. It's what's happening on the grounds crew. It's everybody. It's our fans. It's all of us. We're all in this together, and I think for the thing to work, it's, you know, that's how it's got to be, and everyone's got to feel proud and excited. And the person who's really been instrumental in this is Chris Spielman. He has been phenomenal in helping with this idea. And, you know, every Tuesday after our games, he goes down to Ford Field and goes over a film with anyone who wants to come. And he does a football 101 course with anyone who wants to hear it. I mean, he's been amazing.
Did you know he would be that guy when you reached out to him?
Well, I've always admired and loved Chris, you know, but I didn't know him as well as I do now. And he's just phenomenal. I don't know if you've seen him out of practice with his bucket.
Yep. And filling the sand holes.
He'll do anything,
Yep.
You know, and it speaks volumes.
This is a unique challenge to own an NFL team, because everything you do is measured, everything you do is looked at. What have you learned about yourself in this process?
Well, I think I've grown a lot in this process. You know, I mean, the fact that the right people are here, and, you know, I can see it all happening before my eyes. You know, I'm happy that you know, been able to pick the right people, and I wasn't sure. I've never been in this sort of leadership position before, so I didn't know if that was going to be the case or not. It's like anything new you try, you don't really know. But you know, I'm so pleased, and certainly could never do this alone. I have a lot of support.
There was a time you couldn't get a job in the NFL simply because you're a woman. You now own a team. You watched your mother break down barriers. We're seeing other women all over the league at every level do it as well. What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's fantastic. It really is. I mean, you know the story of when I graduated from college, and, you know, I knew Pete Rozelle. He was kind of a friend. You know, he was sort of, my dad took me to some league meetings with him, and I had dinner with the commissioner, and he was sort of blown away that a girl in the day knew so much about football. And he really tried to help me find a job. I mean, he really did, and there was literally nothing. And so to see that changing, it's phenomenal. And you know, there are women in all kinds of positions now, which is absolutely great. I think the glass ceiling's been broken, which is fabulous.
Brad, Dan, players will point out they haven't done anything yet. But what does it mean to you to hear people nationally say that the Lions are doing it right and they now have expectations on them?
Well, it's fantastic. It really is. It's so exciting. And the fact that we're playing in Kansas City, the very first game of the whole NFL season, obviously the league thinks of us differently. The amount of national games they put on our schedule is exciting. We didn't have any last year. So it's really wonderful, and I think we're up for the challenge.
Final thing. There's a lot of work that has to be done, but I just wonder, have you allowed yourself that dream, that vision of standing in Hart Plaza with 1 million of your friends around holding the Lombardi Trophy?
I've thought about it. Yes, I have. I can't lie and say I haven't. But first things first. But I really have thought about it, and it'd be the most wonderful thing, the city, our fans, my family, all together holding that trophy up. It would be fantastic.